open.
Move! Now! Ansari shouted. His voice was audible over the flashing, screaming lightning storm which filled the warehouse. The electricity bolted like hungry piranhas through room after room, and Ansari's team poured in after it. They didn't bother clearing or checking the corners. The bolt bangs were merciless. "Ah!" Serrano whispered lustfully. "My turn!" She ran ahead, charging past Ansari's crew. She was more like a dog chasing a bone than a huntress. The new X-Tech was doing most of the deadly work for them. Chief Webster remained at the building's threshold. "Liu?" he queried, turning to gaze upon the ramparts of nearby warehouses and peer down alleys within his sight, looking for any sign of trouble. "Whole area's serene, Chief. Overwatch reports clear skies." Liu was a reliable scout, but Webster had learned to worry more about the unseen. "Booth?" the chief prompted. "Clean, no chaos. Seems those new grenades really do the trick," Marquez reported. "The eye shut hard closed once they started zapping. Those goons they took out had to have been the source of the disturbance." "Fascinating," Webster remarked. "Okay, I'm going in, at the very least, to put LT back on her leash." The old workshop comprised room after room of obsolescent mechanical ruin. Broken, rusted equipment strewn everywhere. Webster stepped over injured bodies, flowing through shafts of light, beaming into the dark from above, working his way into the back chambers. "Liu, call cleanup. I think it's over," he commanded. Webster made it into the back room where Serrano was accompanied by a couple of agents. She was holding a poor-looking woman by her small crop of hair. The lieutenant's knee dug into the woman's spine, applying painful pressure on a single vertebra. "And sorry?" Webster's words carried through the wind. The nanos were his comm system, collecting and vibrating against the bones of his inner ear. "All clear on the map. Nanorobotics confirm no hidden chambers," came the reply. "That's enough, LT. It's done," Webster barked. Huffing, Serrano tossed the woman forward so that her face hit the concrete. "This is the leader," she said. "Why would you say that?" Webster asked. The pitiful woman hardly seemed like a criminal. "They were protecting her." The woman sobbed. "I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on here." "Leader? I'm not the leader. I don't know these people." Webster squat to stare at her at eye level. His words were reassuring, although without much kindness. "Have no fear, ma'am. We have ways of getting to the bottom of things quickly." Then he knelt to bring his face even closer to hers. "Any idea what this place is? Help us prove you have nothing to do with these people." "Who are you?" she begged. "Intervention. You know, the cops. What's left of us in this world?" "I don't understand. I didn't commit any crime." "We don't fight crime. We intervene. And we have reason to think there was a mind among the men in this building to upset the peace. What do you think about that?" "What? I don't know. They never spoke, except to give orders and things. They just sat here, waiting. They were quiet. It was spooky, actually. They kidnapped me, and were just waiting around." "That's all?" "There was one man. He was the leader. A masked man. It was a plain, black mask. He left hours ago." Webster gulped. The resplendent eye had led them to the right place, just too late to get any leads. Their adversary's ability to stay hidden from a literal quantum oracle was disturbing. But thankfully, whatever this group of his followers was planning had been stifled by the X-Tech. They had been well armed, and once again regulation was blind to them. Webster would have lost some men trying to take them out the old-fashioned way. The X-Tech was able to kinetically target what the eye could see, that regulation couldn't, offering commands to the nanos from some quantum realm beyond their own. Punishment meted out for crimes committed by a different version of these men in another reality. So be it. Still, the tech wasn't enough to counter the assumed abilities of the masked man, but at least it was an improvement on where things had stood. Director Barnes would be pleased. He would use today's results to bolster his argument that only X itself, fully activated, could overcome the limits to Resplendent Eye. They were back in the shed, Intervention HQ, now with a new plastic pouch. Ripped open, the card inside slowly turned pink now that it was exposed to the open air. "You don't stink as bad this time," Webster teased in the entry control chamber. Serrano growled. Chief Webster could only shrug. Before long, the pair had showered and were back in debrief. In-person debriefs, in the shed. What was it coming to? Webster thought. Serrano was probably right that this pit would be their new home. "I must say it is astonishing. Even I'm surprised," Tesfaye remarked. He had taken to familiarity. I-Alpha was all there. Liu and Ansari. Serrano and Webster. Marquez in place of Millington. Director Barnes at the front of the conference table, across from his unwelcome familiar, Tesfaye. "The new tech seems too good to be true," Barnes conceded. "Well, if we don't use full activation, we don't use it. We might never need it." "But the case isn't closed." "Not yet," Webster said, addressing the room. He was saying what Barnes was thinking, but, for sake of diplomacy, had hesitated to say. Barnes glanced at Webster, acknowledging his loyalty, as much a gesture of appreciation as he would offer. The director said, "Let's talk about the utility of X-Tech for now. We're all quite impressed by the results. Marquez, how did the eye take it?" "It was remarkable," came the awed reply. "Premeditated actors, somehow invisible to regulation. Violent intent was clear, at least in terms of the weapons they had accumulated. In the end, no chaos. The eye never even blinked. The data stream was pure, straight from the esoteric pipeline into our own reality, not one modification to the initial notification. The stream closed as soon as the bolt bangs went off. What if these actors were never intending to cause chaos? What if that's why regulation didn't notice all that firepower? Wouldn't that explain it all? Ansari asked. Barnes raised his eyebrows. "I mean," he continued, "what if this is chaos playing tricks with us, like some sort of red herring? A distraction that's actually helping the masked man with some larger plot?" Marquez shrugged. Tesfaye only blinked, though he eventually commented, "I don't find that extremely likely. It's true that manifestations of chaos appear quite esoteric, but this particular level of planning and purpose doesn't fit your theory. We know that chaos events almost never involve open intent to cause harm until the moment of execution. We once assumed this is because these were random acts of violence by lone agents reaching a difficult-to-predict breaking point. It's now clear that some level of preparation without premeditation is possible. It's some sort of effect of how regulation is managing its resources, as if it's giving actors permission to prepare for violence, almost helping them, in exchange for a certain extreme of intellectual ambivalence and lack of conscious thought on their part. The lack of intention and absence of a stated objective on the part of these chaos agents isn't evidence that their preparations weren't leading to an event. I can't comment on your other theory, that this event was a distraction. I think it's impossible for us to make a judgment like that at the moment." Webster spoke to fill the silence created by Tesfaye's loaded statements. "Today was like an old-fashioned job, like the old days of being a cop. No one asked what gave Webster expertise about the old days. Guys with guns, a raid, no atomic motors, speeding trains, bombs set to go off in the middle of a city. Just goons in an empty neighborhood, being goons. The chief brings up the most important point, Serrano added. Whatever plans these men had, they were armed, and I could smell their meanness. They would have used their weapons if they had been given the chance. That's why they had them. This was no red herring. The bolt bangs are the only reason all of you are taking this so lightly. It's like he said. It's like being a cop in the old days. Barnes shifted his eyes to Marquez, hoping his remaining brief items would refocus the conversation. If this was like the old days, then X was the judge who offered our warrant. When the bolt bangs overloaded the capacitance safeguards on the atmospheric nanos, regulation started shouting at them. Then the eye whispered for it to stop, to look the other way in a few cases. And that was that. Strangely elegant for regulation to just bow down, bowl over at a whisper. Marquez hoped that was the answer the director was looking for. The X protocol, Barnes said, actually smiling. See what it can do, even in small doses? Doctor? Webster was morbidly amused, as always, by the exchange. Barnes wasn't playing a game anymore, not with SCI-FI. The hesitation, these deferrals, they were out of pure professional courtesy against Barnes's better wishes. He would fully activate X the second SCI-FI blinked. SCI-FI, as ever, obliged. These bolt bangs are nothing more than high-energy capacitors, designed knowing that the atmospheric drones will, through regulation, absorb and disperse the energy to prevent harm. Except, these grenades hold algorithmic keys, set here in the bowels of this facility. Down at X, the kill permission, so to speak. Though today, regulation managed to eliminate the threat while preventing death. There was certainly no small amount of harm caused, though. Instead of dispersing the energy, the fail-safe override caused the nanos to direct it toward the enemy. The effect is not merely electrokinetic. This is not merely a weapon. Surely regulation would not stop a directed energy weapon in the hands of an authorized official. Yes, the use of regulated nanorobotic drones in a weapons system is unique and terrifying. But there's more to it. The discharge of energy becomes a focal point within a stochastic system. Regulation arranges pieces in the background, a smoothing function, to support the outcome of the kinetic event. It was not merely that your grenades knocked the wind out of armed goons. The event itself told the whole system to calm down. The energy discharge, the kinetic outcome, the action, that was just a catalyst for a wider, systemic outcome. At least that's how it appears. Outside of the workshop, all was quiet and calm. Whatever chaos event which had been brewing tucked its tail between its legs. Lou frowned. I don't get what you mean, Doctor. SCI-FI explained, let's assume that these armed men were one facet of a larger chaos event that would have seen other random agents come to the assistance of chaos, just like we have seen before. The energy discharge of the grenades not only knocked down these armed men so they could be safely arrested, it became a kind of informatic seed crystal that bound regulation's priorities in a way to prevent any of the other chaos outcomes from manifesting. Remember, I theorize that regulation is inadvertently organizing these events, and this X-Tech, by providing regulation whatever computational burnt offering it needed to disregard its own protocols, also enlightened it to the greater picture. Liu continued frowning, turning to Webster, then Director Barnes. Barnes explained, you know that business about how, if a butterfly flaps its wings, it could create a sequence of effects that steer a hurricane one way or another? Now imagine what sort of impact on weather patterns a nuclear bomb might have, relative to our little butterfly. X-Tech is like a nuclear bomb on the flow of regulations information patterns. It's codependencies that help it balance infinitely complex, competing priorities. The result is, as I have said, X-Tech deletes possible futures from coming into being, clips them off, like a vintner pruning branches off of a vine. Barnes then asked, "What do you say then, Doctor? Have we stumbled upon a compromise that solves our problems for now? Limited X, as it were?" "What can I do but agree?" Tesfaye shrugged. "Still, Director, your words frighten me. We know that X doesn't override regulation. Nothing can override regulation. That's how it works. X works by revealing things that can only be seen by the eye. Unspeakable things, unintelligible, ineffable. Things which somehow have meaning to regulation, enough to convince it to accept the logic of is and is not." Barnes ignored the comment and eyed Webster. "Chief? As for the case?" Webster shrugged, offering, "The woman was a nobody, but Lieutenant Serrano was half right about her. They were protecting her. They seemed to obey her orders in a limited way, and she didn't even realize it. But she was also a prisoner, not at liberty to command them to release her." "A nobody?" "She cleans bedpans at a nursing facility. Was unemployed for 10 years on basic income until 5 years ago. She's a beneficiary of anti-robotics policies. Regulations started purging physical automation from the service economy 7 years ago to create make-work positions." Barnes asked, "And there's nothing more to say about how she fits into all this?" Webster turned to his subordinates. "Her psych profile?" "That was Lou's purview." He replied, "She hates her job. Hates the smell. Wants to go back on basic, but obviously that's not an option now that the benefits have been scaled back. She's conflicted. The money is at least better now. She's traveled twice in 5 years. The novelty of the travel waned significantly after her trip to Europe. She didn't find it half as exciting as her first trip to Cancun. She suffers from Paris syndrome. She didn't find any princes or knights. She uses cannabinolitrum when it's available. Soma the rest of her nights. She's in love with a man whose harem she joined 12 years ago. She's not a member. She bought a triple-use package with a high-end man, spent most of her basic income for 8 years on the repayments. Spends 3.4 nights a month watching the VR tape of her romantic encounter. The man's face is blurred, of course. She couldn't afford otherwise. She feels she has forgotten what he looks like, but knows that she loves only him. She's admitted it to 2 acquaintances, while under the influence of Soma. Her waning hopefulness is contrasted with a sense that she could always go mental, an admission to 4 acquaintances. It's a saying from the blocks. It means having a deliberate outburst to get sent to the wellness camps. And as a medical worker, she is aware that the camps are not as comfortable as advertised. Tesfaye drummed fingers, sighing. Imagine what the data logs could reveal about each of us. But his rhetorical statement received no reciprocation, so he carried forward with his analysis. Typical of this society. Like so many millions, right on the edge of some sort of defeat that never comes. Like so many others, possible candidates for chaos events, but nothing unique. Barnes looked to Webster and asked, "Chief, are you satisfied with this profile?" "Yes, Director," he replied. "I don't believe there is more to this than what meets the eye. As Dr. Tesfaye said, she's pretty typical." "Surely, though, somehow this woman is unique, a variant on the norm. The deviance doesn't have to fit the profile we're expecting." "Marquez?" "Director?" he responded. "The eye. This is what we built it to do, to see the unseen. Any variation, anything curious about the woman, when you peek through the curtain, in your data." Marquez looked stumped, he explained. The thing is that the eye isn't like the data streams. Regulation can explain in crystal clear detail all the nuances and ways to interpret a person's life, and the little things they do or say, even the whispers they utter during their sleep. The eye is just like ripples, waves and data patterns in places where regulation is shaky, but we don't know it. Perturbations. I don't know if they can really add anything in detail about a specific person. Just as Marquez finished explaining, it looked like a light bulb suddenly went off in his mind. He picked up a stack of papers off of the conference table and thumbed through them. After a minute, he had his epiphany. He tossed the papers down with confidence. Folding his arms, he said, "There's a 12.43% chance, in those quantum realities with which we believe we are resonant, that this woman would be our masked man." "What?" came the refrain from nearly all members in the room. Webster led the charge. "You are saying that in 12% of all universes, this woman is the masked man? What, instead of our masked man?" Marquez shook his head. "No, sorry. The statistics are hopelessly complicated. It's a statement about certainty when we're very uncertain. Booth speak. Just, there is a signal out there which says that this woman is our adversary. Maybe, probably not, in some realities, instead of our masked man. But she is assuredly not playing that role here, in our universe." Ansari, the tech whiz on I-Alpha, complained, "How can you make such a specific claim off of stochastic data you were just complaining about as being too vague for interpretation?" Marquez answered, "It's a signal, a wave pattern which appears when chaos agents interact with the masked man. We've been trying to interpret it, to guess if it's an artifact, a command signal, a hidden voice in the multiverse coordinating things. I realize that the signal appears faintly when the woman unwittingly issued orders. These signals have fingerprints, and in 12.43% of the distribution of signals we receive through the eye, this woman's unique version of that command line matches, with statistical significance. Okay, so, sure, maybe I am reaching with my interpretation, but what if these chaos agents really do have half their brain in the multiverse? It would explain their obsession with the woman, and also how their planning is getting around regulation." All eyes turned to Dr. Tesfaye. He nodded, agreeing with the interpretation. Barnes raised his eyebrows again, staring at the wall. Tesfaye commented, "If this woman's importance is merely an echo in the eye, then perhaps she is genuinely unimportant here." Webster thought he understood, but these were heavy notions. He asked, "These goons, the masked man, they're guided by these forces. By what? Leakage? A consequence of using the eye question mark." "Precisely," Tesfaye confirmed. "The same blind spot regulation creates for itself in the process of hitting a wall of non-computability is being multiplied cross-dimensionally using the eye. We used to think chaos actors couldn't plan or prepare, but I think now we know better. With the eye, maybe they can develop conscious purpose, one which is sequestered away in other realities. It's Heisenberg. By looking elsewhere for predictability, we're creating the unseen thing we're searching for." Webster got it, in terms even his granddad, the beat cop, could understand. "It's like a debt we have to pay. Not one thing is free in life, and nothing truly honest lasts very long." Barnes almost rolled his eyes, but probably out of wanting to avoid alienating Webster for the time being, leaned into the more practical elements of Tesfaye's theory. "So the masked man may indeed have a purpose. Even if we can't see it, the fact that it exists means we can reason it out. As Chief Webster likes to say, The old-fashioned way, he concluded. Tesfaye chose to partake of Barnes's peace pipe. Enough talk of X. They'd unite around the mission. He said, "Where particularly our adversary's purpose happens to be transcribed is irrelevant. The director is correct that we have the experience, tools, and wisdom to fill in most of the blanks. If we haven't sorted things out yet, it might only be because the enemy's purpose is much simpler than we have as of yet conceived. I believe it will come to us. We just have to wait." After a minute of silence, Webster commented, "I hate playing on a bad guy's timetable, but either way, we're intervention. We respond. Next time the masked man acts, we'll be there to put out the fire." The exterior of the shed was remarkable for being unremarkable. It was little more than a big empty field surrounded by forest. A small parking lot contained 2 guard vehicles, a half-dozen luxury carriages, and just for today, I-Alpha's tactical response wagon. A small row of presently vacant bus stops opposed the small lot. Severe fences funneled walkways into an ancient concrete, aluminum, and glass entry center. It featured 2 above-ground corridors, which peeled off in a couple different directions into some wild plant growth before diving into the earth. Even the low security offices were underground. There had been a large above-ground complex once. Imposing. Cubic. The need for labor had shrunk with digital automation. Only the secure functions, locked in as they were to the old ways, remained. It was autumn, and leaves crunched under Webster's feet as he walked with Serrano to the van. "I wonder if we'll ever work in the Batcave again," Webster said, referring to I-Alpha's tactical headquarters situated in a far-off municipality. Serrano was silent, not for reasons of emotional necessity. There were times when she genuinely had nothing to say. "You want to take the van, or shall I?" he asked. "You know I can't," she began. "Why do you say that?" he asked, curious at her direction. "It's a bit much for the neighborhood. I keep things on down low with the family." "Don't want to worry them." Her lip curled. "My nest family. I'm a pain in the ass, you know, 'cause them suffering in too many ways. I don't need to spook them with a giant government murder wagon." "All right," he chirped. "I didn't mind taking it anyway. It has a coffee maker. Where should I drop you off?" "Get me to Baltimore. I'll take the B and C line from there. Wait, Chief, I hope I'm not taking you out of the way. Where do you even live?" "It doesn't matter." The Custom Intervention Tactical Response Wagon did come with expedient crew bunks. Webster had slept in places less comfortable. The auto-steer function would handle 2 roads all right. His neck of the woods wasn't outside of the highway maintenance zone of responsibility. If it was, he surely wouldn't be allowed to live there. That didn't mean the roads were often or well-maintained. The pleasure of traversing the back country meant that whenever Webster's mind began drifting away out of consciousness and into dreams, the jolt of a rough pothole would pull him down into wakefulness. Regardless, this misery was worth an opportunity to visit his wife and children. Intervention was a demanding job. Chaos didn't rest or take time off, but today's intervention was decisive, clean. It had created a lull in the data. The quiet was unsettling, but Webster wouldn't look a gift horse in the mouth. Dr. Tesfaye's warnings aside, Barnes's confidence in X was well placed. It gave Webster permission, for once, to take his mind off of work. He finally dreamed. He dreamed of his little slice of paradise, his family, and their little backwoods farm. As if the filthy, crowded cities didn't exist. As if chaos was just a bar in a larger melody. Whatever rest Webster needed, he got. And then, after a barrage of potholes, he gave up on getting any more sleep. Here was the difference between what you want and what you need. He was still drowsy, and the damned nanos didn't work half as well out in the woods. Mercifully, there was the coffee maker. Webster sat at the console, finishing his coffee one slow sip at a time. The road was hilly now, curving. It was a task not to spill his drink. Once Webster finished his last pour, he tossed his cup into the recycler. He hit the manual control switch. Why not? For another hour, while his coffee buzz lingered, Webster sped around corners, braking and slamming the accelerator. This was glee. Autumn leaves dashed, spinning and whirling by. Tears came to him as Webster crossed the bridge over the creek into his allotment. This is why he fought. Why his daddy and granddaddy and great-granddaddy had fought. For family. Were they even part of his life anymore? They would be today. This X-Tech, or whatever it was, if it kept working this well, who knew? This could be a new chapter. Webster parked a little out of the way of the main driveway, behind a big oak. The awful police van was monstrous, imposing as it was meant to be. He'd change too, maybe sneak up on the kids and take them by surprise. They'd have a laugh, wear each other out, eat dinner, tell bedtime stories. Then Webster would be alone with his wife. Webster pulled up against the tree, hit the parking brake, and was about to switch off manual control. With one last good grip of the wheel, he sighed. A long sigh that said more than 1,000 words could convey. Then the comm chirped. He'd have to finger the physical comm switch this far out. There was a light. The satellite transceiver wouldn't rise with the tree branches in the way. Webster groaned, pulling the van back a bit. Comm was up. "Chief!" came the cry, with a slur of nasty-sounding swear words in what might have been archaic Spanish. "They took her! The man in the mask took my Cynthia!" Regret and disappointment rolled over Webster. He looked in the direction of his home, which was still just beyond a small copse. His family probably hadn't seen him park. Then he thought of Serrano, screaming over the comm, her Cynthia, her family. Webster didn't have a Cynthia, but he had his people. He thought what he'd feel like if anyone hurt them. Okay, that was enough. A fire rose in his chest. It was time to get back to work. "I'm coming, LT," he said, thumb on the comm. "It's time to stay focused. It's more important than ever not to be rash." Webster asked himself whether he should check in on the family. A quick set of hugs, tears when he said he had to turn around and leave again. No, they were used to him being away. Showing up just to turn around and leave was too much. Well, he thought, looks like I'm going to have to put in an order for military airlift. While he waited for pickup, in a field a mile from his home, Webster poured himself another cup of coffee.
Nation. Resolute.